What is the disturbing backstory behind something that is widely considered wholesome? The Roblox game Phantom Forces was a very popular and fun game in the first-person shooter community in Roblox. But last month, everything was spilled. Some game devs were actual predators who were furries. One dev/mod even met up with a 16-year-old girl. A couple of the Phantom Forces Discord mods, YouTubers, and even a dev, I'm pretty sure, on the game, were even banned from the Discord server because they found out about the stuff. Others who were told were given large amount of Robux, the Roblox game currency that can be turned into real cash, to keep the secret and not talk about it. Is it really any surprise that Roblox is like this? I feel like I've heard nothing amazing about this website, man. I used to play on it when I was like 12 or whatever, and I'm pretty sure people like that were on there even back then. And hey, the internet sure hasn't gotten better. Story 2. Weird Al is not only one of the most talented, long-running artists in an entire industry, he also seems to be genuinely a caring, kind human being. I've had the privilege of meeting him at concert after parties on 2 occasions. Both times he took the time to have a conversation with me, look into my eyes, and make an actual connection. He did this for everyone in attendance, despite long lines. On one of those occasions, my buddy was with me for his first Weird Al VIP experience. The photo op he and his wife took with Al sadly came out blurry. They asked one of Al's aides, and he said he couldn't promise anything but would ask Al directly. A couple minutes later, my wife and his friend were called back in for a retake, something a huge celebrity like Weird Al could have very easily and fairly reasonably turned down. We need more Weird Als in the world. Story 3. The song Save the Last Dance for Me by the Drifters was written by a man who was crippled by polio and in a wheelchair watching his new wife dancing with other men at his wedding to her because he couldn't. Edit. In the song, he's saying that he's the one taking her home, not them. I don't think he's angry. He's just saying that no matter who she dances with, she is his wife and will be taking her home at the end of the night. Story 4. In the animated film All Dogs Go to Heaven, the little girl who plays Anne-Marie was murdered by her father prior to the film being released. Burt Reynolds struggled hard to finish recording his scene where Charlie says goodbye to the little girl one last time before going to heaven. It's a tear-inducing scene without knowing the backstory, but you can absolutely hear the pain in Burt Reynolds' voice. It's generally considered a very loving and heart-touching moment, but knowing what happened makes it really hard to listen to that without getting emotional. Her father was a violent and abusive alcoholic who took both her and her mom's life, and then his own. She was 10 years old. Story 5. Bananas. You thought that drugs were a blood-soaked cartel and war-driven commodity? The banana trade makes Coke look like a farmer's market. Also chocolate, coffee, tea, spices, and most tropical fruits. And meat and, well, seafood. Basically everything we eat, wear, and use. Story 6. When I was 10 or so, my sisters and I were doing a common counting rhyme to pick something. Maybe who went first in a game, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. My dad walked by and quietly commented, "When I was your age, that word wasn't tiger, but we didn't know better back then." Okay, well, buddy, you know better now. Don't bring that up in front of children. I feel like that's something they can learn a little later because they will ask. And what do you tell them then? What it has become is perfectly fine. Story 7. Went to a community event last night and 32 years later, Macarena still fills the dance floor. A bunch of teens learned the dance for the very first time. The lyrics are, of course, in Spanish, and about the titular Macarena having a trio with her boyfriend's friends while he's off swearing his military oath. Also interesting is that the band played traditional music primarily, and this was their first pop release in their 50s. They went back to traditional music after. Story 8. The Volkswagen Beetle was a beloved car with a quirky design. It was also commissioned by order of Adolf Hitler, designed by Ferdinand Porsche, as an affordable, practical vehicle for the German public. Its original name was the KDF Wagen, which was an abbreviation of the Hitler Youth motto, Kraft durch Freude. Strength through joy. I know I butchered that German, but like hell am I looking up the Hitler Youth motto on Google to figure it out. Absolutely not. Story 9. The little girl who played Matilda in the movie Matilda had her mom die of cancer before the movie was released. I believe the director showed her a rough cut before she passed, but geez, that made me sad to learn as an adult. Story 10. Pugs and other similar dog breeds suffer all their lives because of selective breeding, leading to the deformation of their faces, legs, bodies, and skin, plus cardiac and respiratory issues. I really hope they go extinct someday. I can't bear watching such an aberration of nature due to human vanity. No thing must suffer their entire life only to look cute or adorable or luxury. Story 11. Dancing in the Moonlight. Sherman Kelly and his girlfriend were beaten with a baseball bat and almost lost their lives. And his girlfriend was additionally assaulted by a gang in St. Croix whilst on the beach. He wrote Dancing in the Moonlight as an alternate reality of that night, as he wanted to believe in a better world than the one he experienced. Story 12. Resusci Annie, the rubbery anatomical model we learned CPR on. The face is modeled after the death mask of an unidentified and unclaimed woman who drowned in the Seine River in the late 1800s. Toymaker Asmund S. Hillardel chose to use the woman's face on the mannequin as he thought male trainees might be reluctant to kiss a man's face. The face was sculpted by the Norwegian-Danish sculptor Emma Matheson. Story 13. Scottish Folds. Those cute cats with the folded ears. They have those ears because of osteochondrodysplasia. It causes joint, cartilage, and skeletal deformities. There is no treatment, only pain management. Those poor cats are in constant pain. Story 14. The snake that died in Friday the 13th was a real snake. To make matters worse, it wasn't some wild snake they found in the woods. It was somebody's pet snake that had to watch his snake lose its life. He apparently had no idea and had to be held back from punching the director. Yeah, that's messed up, man. Like, am I crazy to say that would make me never work in show business ever again? That is a crazy thing to do to a living creature in general, and especially someone's pet? Absolutely nuts. Story 15. A bride having her father give her away comes from property transfers. Only men were full people. They owned their wives and children. Girls and women were property and had little choice in the matter. This was a transfer of ownership from the father to the husband. Story 16. Free school lunches in America started because the military complained that during World War II, many 18-year-old men were too skinny to serve in the military. Free school lunches were added afterwards to make 18-year-old men strong enough to be drafted. Story 17. Ghislaine Raza, the Star Wars kid, had his video posted on Akaza without his permission by his schoolmates to prank him, and as a result, he was bullied at school, people made fun of him online, gave him death threats, told him to take his life, all for pretending to be a Star Wars character, which is a totally normal thing for kids to do. He also had to go to a mental hospital, and his parents sued the kids who uploaded the video. Luckily, he returned to school to finish his senior year, went to McGill University in Montreal, got a law degree, and became president of his city's Heritage Society. Story 18. The song Marry You by Bruno Mars is not romantic. It's about something fun to do while drunk. Listen to the lyrics. It's a beautiful night. We're looking for something dumb to do. Hey baby, I think I want to marry you. Oh, and if we wake up and you want to break up, that's cool. No, I won't blame you. It was fun, girl. I laugh every time people use this in proposals or as wedding songs. I gotta be so for real. There was much more of the lyrics in the post, but like, I'm not just gonna read out the lyrics to a song. But also, does anyone think this is like a hyper romantic song? It doesn't try to hide what it is, I thought. It's pretty upfront. As OP said, it literally says we're looking for something dumb to do. I thought it was about, like spontaneity and that sort of whirlwind romance and the fun of it. If anyone actually does use this as like a proposal song, I would question if they listen to it. Story 19. Best Friends Animal Society was founded by Scientology members who formed their own cult spin-off, The Process Church. They associated with Charles Manson and David Berkowitz, with the author of Helter Skelter postulating that Manson was heavily influenced by Process. The Rescue was originally a grift to keep their church going. They eventually moved to Rescue full-time after realizing how incredibly lucrative and, like their church, tax-free it could be. With $200 million in assets, $314 million in 2024 revenue, and 2 private jets, you can see just how well their grift paid off. Story 20. The guy that lost 300 pounds by eating Subway didn't lose weight by eating Subway. He lost weight by walking daily to a particular Subway that wasn't even the nearest one, just so he could see an underaged girl who worked there. Story 21. This is often mentioned in threads like, what lively, catchy song has dark lyrics, but Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees, the immortal disco anthem is about how life in New York in the 70s sucked, and people often felt lost with no purpose. The only thing they had to fall back on was dancing at the club. Story 22. Amish people are supposedly these honest farmers eschewing modern ways. Amish run gigantic puppy mills for big profit. They stack cages floor to ceiling, treating the mom and dad dogs with abject cruelty, never a kind word or a touch. The dogs rescued from Amish puppy mills are the most traumatized and abused dogs I've ever fostered. We fostered over 220 dogs, by the way. One sad, fearful dog wouldn't let me touch him for 3 weeks. Another had to be euthanized because of chronic untreated ear infection for years, and it caused end-stage ear growths, which plugged his ears and made him deaf and in constant pain. Screw the Amish. Cruel, greedy animal abusers. Whoa, P, watch what you say. The Amish might watch the... Oh, you know what? Maybe you're fine. Is that a mean joke? I don't actually know. Story 23. I always prided myself on my ability to stay calm in an emergency and problem solve about the next best action to take, especially because I've struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life. Like, this was an area I knew I could count on myself, and other people could count on me too. Friends, family, and colleagues have often commented on it. Then, a few years back, when I found a really good therapist to help me deal with PTSD from growing up in an abusive, alcoholic household, she explained that being good in a crisis is a type of trauma response. I'm always in hyperarousal, on the lookout for danger. I've dealt with scary, unpredictable, dangerous situations since I was a kid. Of course I know what to do. I'm still proud of this ability. It just makes me sad to think of how I came to have it. Story 24. Alfred Nobel, the creator of the Nobel Prize, was the inventor of dynamite and amassed his wealth by developing, manufacturing, and selling explosives, the weapons of mass destruction of his day. A French newspaper mistakenly published an obituary for his death when another arms manufacturer died, calling him the Merchant of Death. Seeing what his legacy was and how he and his family name were going to be remembered, he changed his will to found the Nobel Prize. Story 25. Pro wrestling and WWE has a long, filthy history of every criminal offense imaginable. Your favorite superstar growing up was likely at the very least an addict or supports problematic causes. At worst, a murderer or assaulter. Never stopped them from marketing the product to children, though. Story 26. Milo and Otis is a cute, wholesome film about a cat and a dog on a crazy adventure, Homeward Bound style. But many, many animals lost their lives in making the movie. There's one scene where a cat falls down a waterfall in a box, and apparently they had to shoot that scene multiple times because the cats kept dying. Story 27. Sea monkeys. Harold von Braunhut was an American mail-order marketer and inventor, most famous as the creator and seller of both the amazing sea monkeys and the X-ray specs, along with many other novelty products marketed towards children, often advertised in comic books. Despite his Jewish upbringing, he closely associated with white supremacist groups. He helped buy firearms for a Ku Klux Klan faction in Ohio. He was a regular at the annual Aryan Nations World Congress, where he sometimes had the honor of lighting the cross. Story 29. Both shoe brands Puma and Adidas are German. They were started by the brothers Rudolf and Adolf Dassler. They owned Dassler Brothers Shoe Factory, 1924, and then separated to create two companies, Puma and Adidas, in 1948. The name Adidas comes from Adolf's nickname, Adi. Side note, when the company Nike was trying to launch in 1964, Adolf Dassler did everything in his power to prevent Nike from becoming successful. Now there's a very long-standing and very significant hatred of Adidas by Nike. Story 30. Ring Around the Roses is a nursery rhyme that is supposedly about bubonic plague. It references deadly rashes, and posies were supposed to be a natural remedy to help with the rashes. Ashes refers to cremating the body so the plague couldn't spread from corpses, and naturally, we all fall down is alluding to everyone dying from illness. Next time you see a group of children standing in a circle singing this song, I promise it'll be a little eerie. Story 32. Alice in Wonderland was written by an adult man, Lewis Carroll, on a boat with 3 young girls, aimed at one of them, Alice. They enjoyed the whimsical story so much that they said he should write it down. It is heavily implied he was trying to woo the 10-year-old girl. The others were 13 and 8. and there were pages of his diary that were removed by his family. His relationship with younger people was seen as unusual at the time, and it was he, 30 years old at the time, and his friend, 24M, on the boat with these 3 children, and there were no familial ties. He was good friends with their father, part of the church, and would often have picnics with the family and the girls alone. There was an end to these and a huge falling out between Lewis and Alice's family a year after the boat story. The pages in his diary around this time are torn out. 3 years after the boat story, he did publish Alice in Wonderland. There are implications from his family's journals that he intended to wed Alice or Alice's mother. Story 33. Mary Kay Bergman was an incredibly wonderful voice actress who is known for her roles, such as Snow White from 89 to 99 and Daphne Blake from 97 to 99. In 1997, she joined the original cast of South Park under the name of Shannon Cassidy in order to not cause issues with Disney and her roles as Snow White. She voiced all the female characters in South Park until 99. In November of 99, she spent the day contributing to a Disney radio program as Snow White, and then, that night, she went home and took her own life. She shot herself and left 2 notes for people she loved, stating she, quote, could not handle her fear. Matt Stone and Trey Parker were initially so impacted by it they couldn't even issue a statement about losing her for a bit. In the Mr. Hanky Christmas sing-along episode, the final number is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, as a direct tribute to her. Story 34. Not disturbing, just kind of interesting, but as kids, schools teach you about Johnny Appleseed to introduce apples and healthy eating, because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But the true story is that back then, they didn't have strains of apples, and you could easily end up with a sour or bad tasting one. The dude was going around planting apple seeds because apples were used for producing booze. I had to find a relatively tame one to end it on. I don't know. I just felt like I didn't want to leave it with a super depressing one. I didn't really hear about Johnny Appleseed when I was a kid, probably because I'm in Canada. In fact, if you asked me, I'm not even sure who he is. Anyway, that's all the stories for today. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or a night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.